I saved my boss from a terrible date, and she said, "Do you think do ever want to date me?" It was a Thursday evening, and the city lights glimmered faintly on the wet streets outside. The restaurant smelled of roasted herbs and freshly baked bread, a pleasant aroma that should have made anyone's evening relaxing. But tonight, Alex's nerves were a mix of curiosity and mild dread. Across the table, Clara sat poised, her posture perfect as always. Her dark hair fell neatly over her shoulders, and her tailored navy dress hugged her figure in a way that radiated confidence without being intimidating. She was the kind of person who could command a room with just a glance, the CEO of a fast-growing tech company, admired by peers, feared by competitors, and respected by everyone who worked for her. And yet tonight she looked slightly uncomfortable. Alex could tell. Her date, someone introduced by a mutual friend, seemed completely oblivious to the fact that Clara's attention wavered constantly between polite nodding and trying not to sigh aloud. He talked too much and too loudly, leaning back in his chair as if the restaurant was his personal stage. He laughed at every joke he told, even the ones that weren't funny, and interrupted Clara multiple times before she could even finish a sentence. Alex, seated a few tables away under the pretense of a work call, had the perfect vantage point. They had been tasked with ensuring Clara's evening went smoothly. A favor, yes, but also something that Alex couldn't resist taking seriously. It wasn't just about being helpful. Alex had known Clara for 3 years. They had seen her through pitch meetings, product launches, investor calls, and endless negotiations. And they knew that tonight she deserved better. The date was already turning into a disaster. "So Clara," the man said, leaning in as if he had just made a groundbreaking discovery, "do you really spend your weekends coding? That sounds nerdy." He laughed at his own comment. Clara forced a polite smile. "I enjoy it," she replied softly, her voice calm but tinged with discomfort. Alex noticed the slight tightening of Clara's jaw. She hated small talk like this. She hated being underestimated, and she hated that someone could see her brilliance and still reduce it to a joke. Alex tapped their fingers lightly against the table, their mind racing. How could they intervene without making the situation worse? Direct confrontation would be obvious and rude. Subtlety was key. As if reading Alex's mind, Clara's date pulled out his phone. "Check this out," he said, showing her a meme he had found online. It was awkward, not offensive, just painfully unfunny. Clara's eyes flicked to the screen and then away quickly. Alex took a slow breath. It was time. A waiter approached with a tray of drinks. Alex had prepared for this moment in advance, one small distraction at a time. The waiter accidentally dropped a napkin near the man's table, and he leaned forward to pick it up. At the same time, Alex's phone buzzed with a fake urgent work message that required them to stand up, pretending to check it. "Everything okay?" the waiter asked, smiling politely at Clara. "Yes, thank you," she said, but the tension in her shoulders remained. Alex caught her eye and nodded subtly. Clara's gaze softened ever so slightly, a silent acknowledgement that Alex was there, watching and ready to help. Minutes passed. The man continued talking, oblivious to the subtle signals Alex had sent. He told a story about a camping trip that didn't make much sense, full of exaggerated moments that bordered on embarrassing. Clara laughed politely once or twice, but it was clear her patience was thinning. Alex knew they had to escalate their intervention. They couldn't just sit there and watch. At the table beside Clara's, Alex had left a small package, a bouquet of bright flowers from the restaurant's selection. Nothing extravagant, just enough to catch attention. They asked the waiter to deliver it, claiming it was from another patron who wanted to surprise someone special tonight. When the flowers arrived, Clara's date leaned back in his chair, pretending to be impressed, but it was clear he didn't know what to do. Clara, however, smiled genuinely, a flicker of relief in her eyes. Alex could see it, and they felt a small victory. "Those are beautiful," Clara said softly, inhaling the scent of the flowers. Alex used the moment to create another gentle distraction. Their phone buzzed again, louder this time, and Alex accidentally dropped a document near the table. The man bent down to pick it up, giving Clara a chance to stand gracefully. "I just realized something," Clara said, looking around. "I left my charger in the car. I need to." "Can I help?" Alex asked, appearing suddenly at her side, perfectly timed. Clara's eyes widened just slightly. "That would be great," she said. Together they walked toward the exit. The man, confused and caught off guard, stammered something about following, but didn't, because Alex had already preempted the moment by subtly blocking the path with a casual stance. Outside, the cool night air was a relief. Clara took a deep breath and looked at Alex. "You didn't have to do that," she said, though her smile betrayed appreciation. Alex shrugged. "I couldn't just watch. You deserve better than that." Clara's eyes softened. There was something about Alex's calm confidence that made her feel safe, understood, and curious. She had spent years being respected for her work, but few people had ever treated her with such quiet, intelligent care in social situations. "Thank you," she said. "Honestly." Alex smiled, feeling a small surge of pride. It wasn't just about the rescue. It was about showing that human observation, patience, and intuition could solve problems that brute force or blunt social maneuvering could not. They walked back to the office together, a sense of quiet camaraderie forming between them. Clara's usual commanding presence was softened just enough that Alex noticed her subtle laughter, the kind that came when someone finally feels seen. By the time they reached the lobby, Clara's date was long forgotten. And though Alex didn't say it aloud, they felt that tonight had shifted something, not just in Clara's evening, but in the unspoken connection forming between them. The city lights reflected on the marble floor of the lobby, and Alex caught Clara's gaze for a brief second. Something unspoken passed between them. Respect, gratitude, curiosity, maybe even the first hint of admiration beyond work. As they parted ways to their separate offices, Clara said lightly, almost as if testing the waters, "You know, you have a way of fixing things, don't you?" Alex grinned, tucking their hands into their pockets. "I try my best." And in that simple exchange, both of them realized something important. Sometimes, human ingenuity, empathy, and a little clever thinking could do more than brute skill or social charm. Sometimes it could make a real difference. For Alex, it was a small victory, but one that hinted at something much bigger, something that neither of them could quite put into words yet. The night ended, but the story had just begun. The next morning, the office buzzed with the usual energy of ringing phones, typing keyboards, and murmurs of conversation. Alex arrived slightly earlier than usual, carrying a steaming cup of coffee and a stack of neatly organized folders. Despite the routine, their mind replayed the events of the previous night. Clara had been calm, composed, and professional the entire day, but Alex could sense that something was different. There was a quiet spark in her eyes, an unspoken recognition of the effort Alex had made to make her evening less stressful. Alex found their desk and set down the coffee, glancing up at the glass-walled office where Clara usually sat. She was already there, going over reports, her brow furrowed in concentration. But when she noticed Alex watching, she gave a small smile, a rare, genuine smile that made Alex's chest tighten just a little. It wasn't long before Clara approached, her heels clicking softly on the polished floor. "Alex," she said, stopping in front of the desk. "Can I talk to you for a moment?" Alex nodded, curious. "Of course." Clara gestured for them to follow her to a quieter corner of the office. "About last night," she began, her tone measured but carrying a subtle warmth. "I wanted to thank you again. I don't know what I would have done without your intervention." Alex shrugged lightly. "It was nothing, really. I just noticed things were getting a bit tricky." Clara shook her head, smiling slightly. "No, it was more than that. You handled it perfectly." I didn't even realize someone could navigate that situation with so much tact. Alex felt a blush creep up their neck. They weren't used to receiving such direct praise. I just tried to help, they said, looking down at their hands. Clara studied Alex for a moment, then laughed softly, a sound that was both light and genuine. You have a real talent for reading people. That's rare, Alex. Most people either overreact or don't notice at all. Alex felt a mix of pride and embarrassment. They had always taken care to observe situations carefully, to anticipate problems before they became serious. But being recognized for it by Clara, of all people, felt significant. As they spoke, a few colleagues passed by, offering nods and greetings. Clara waved politely, then returned her attention to Alex. "I've been thinking," she said, lowering her voice slightly. "It's not just that you helped me last night. It's the way you think, the way you see solutions where others see problems. That's valuable not just in emergencies but in everyday life." Alex's heart beat a little faster. "Thank you," they said softly. Clara's gaze lingered, and for a moment the office noises faded into the background. "You know," she continued, "it's funny. I've always admired people who can anticipate situations, who can act without causing more problems. And last night, you did that. Effortlessly." Alex swallowed, feeling both flattered and slightly nervous. "I guess I just pay attention," they replied. Clara laughed again, shaking her head. "It's more than that. Most people would have panicked or made it worse. You didn't. You stayed calm. You stayed clever. You made me feel safe, and I don't often feel that way outside work." Alex blinked, unsure what to say. Words felt inadequate for the quiet gratitude and admiration Clara was expressing. Instead, they simply nodded. The conversation shifted slightly as Clara's assistant duties began to call her attention back to the office. But the spark between them lingered, a subtle tension that neither dared name yet. Later that day, Alex was called into a small meeting with Clara. She had prepared a series of planning charts for an upcoming project, a high-stakes presentation that could determine the future of the company. But instead of jumping straight into business, she looked at Alex thoughtfully. "I want you to handle something for me," she said. "Not the usual tasks, something more subtle." Alex raised an eyebrow. "More subtle?" "Yes," Clara replied, leaning back slightly in her chair. "I need someone who can anticipate problems before they happen, someone who can think ahead. I need you to help me with a social situation. And no, it's not a work meeting." Alex's curiosity piqued. "A social situation," Clara nodded. "Exactly. I have a dinner coming up. Another blind date, unfortunately. But this one, I don't want it to turn into a disaster like last night. I want to feel confident, not stressed. And I think you can help me." Alex smiled inwardly. This was exactly the kind of challenge they excelled at, reading situations, predicting outcomes, and making things run smoothly. "I'd be happy to help," they said. Clara's eyes twinkled. "Good. I knew I could count on you." Over the next few hours, Alex meticulously planned every detail of the upcoming evening. They researched the restaurant, reviewed possible conversation topics, and even anticipated the kinds of awkward moments that might occur. Every scenario had a potential solution. Every possible embarrassment had a countermeasure. By the time the evening arrived, Alex was ready. They followed Clara to the restaurant discreetly, keeping to the shadows but maintaining a clear view of every interaction. The moment Clara greeted her date, Alex began subtly guiding the evening without being noticed. When the date brought up a dull topic, Alex sent a gentle reminder to Clara's phone, a carefully crafted message that suggested a conversation pivot. When the waiter appeared, Alex timed it so that he distracted the man at just the right moment, preventing an awkward interruption. Every move was deliberate, precise, and unnoticed. Clara began to relax. She laughed more naturally, her shoulders dropped, and her expression softened. Alex watched from a distance, satisfaction swelling quietly in their chest. This was why they loved these kinds of challenges. the chance to apply careful observation, clever strategy, and subtle action to make a real difference. Halfway through the evening, Clara's date attempted another clumsy joke. Before she could respond awkwardly, Alex made a small, indirect intervention, accidentally dropping a napkin near the table, prompting the waiter to approach. Clara's attention shifted, and the moment passed without incident. It was in these small victories that Alex felt a deep sense of fulfillment. They weren't just saving someone from embarrassment. They were proving that thoughtfulness, empathy, and careful planning could change outcomes, even in social situations that seemed impossible. By the end of the evening, Clara was smiling genuinely, her earlier tension replaced by ease and amusement. She didn't notice Alex leaving discreetly, giving her the space to enjoy herself without feeling observed. Later, as they walked back to the office, Clara turned to Alex. "You really have a gift," she said softly, "not just for work but everything. You notice things others don't, you fix things without making it obvious. That's rare." Alex felt their cheeks warm. "I just try to pay attention," they said humbly. Clara shook her head. "No. It's more than that. You're clever, kind, and thoughtful. You make people feel safe and understood. I appreciate that." For a long moment they walked in silence, the city lights reflecting on the wet pavement. Alex realized that their skills, observation, strategy, empathy, were not just tools for work. They were part of what made them human, what made them valuable, what made them memorable. Clara's gaze met theirs briefly, and Alex caught a flicker of curiosity and admiration there, something beyond professional respect, something more personal. And in that moment, Alex understood that their efforts, small as they seemed, had created more than a successful rescue. They had forged a connection, quiet, subtle, but undeniable. A connection that was only just beginning to show its potential. The evening ended without fanfare, without dramatic revelations, and without any need for confrontation. Yet for Alex and Clara, it was a triumph of human ingenuity, care, and quiet courage. It was proof that thoughtful intervention, empathy, and cleverness could change lives, not with force, but with understanding and attention. As Alex returned to their own apartment that night, they smiled to themselves. There was work to be done, challenges to face, and lives to improve, one subtle action at a time. But tonight had been a reminder that even small gestures, guided by insight and humanity, could make a big difference. And for Alex, the thought of what might come next, what opportunities, what moments of connection, was more exciting than anything they had experienced before. The next morning, Alex arrived at the office with a light step. The previous evening's dinner replayed in their mind like a carefully arranged scene in a movie. Every smile, every subtle gesture, every moment of ease Clara had experienced because of Alex's quiet interventions filled them with satisfaction. Clara, as usual, was already in her office when Alex arrived. But today, there was a difference. She looked at Alex not just as an assistant or colleague, but as someone who had quietly changed the course of her evening. Her eyes held a spark, a curiosity, a subtle warmth that Alex hadn't seen before. "Morning," Clara said, her voice softer than usual. She leaned back in her chair, watching Alex approach. "Can I steal a few minutes of your time?" Alex nodded. "Of course." They followed Clara into a smaller, quiet meeting room, a place where interruptions were minimal and conversations could flow freely. Clara gestured for Alex to sit. "About last night," she began, pausing as if carefully choosing her words. "I've been thinking. You didn't just save me from an awkward situation. You understood me, and that matters more than you realize." Alex felt their pulse quicken. "I just noticed the situation," they said, trying to keep their voice steady. "I wanted to help." Clara shook her head. "It's more than that. Most people wouldn't even see what's happening in the moment. You did, and you acted with care, with thought. That's rare, Alex, very rare." Alex shifted slightly in their seat, unsure how to respond. Words felt too small for the acknowledgement Clara was giving. They had always prided themselves on observation and problem-solving, but hearing Clara recognize it on such a personal level was different. You know, Clara continued, leaning forward slightly, it's not just about skill, it's about how you make people feel. Safe, understood, respected. That's valuable. Alex blinked, meeting her gaze. For a moment, the usual professional distance between them felt smaller, almost non-existent. Clara's words weren't just praise, they were recognition of something deeper, something personal. I thank you, Alex said finally. That means a lot. Clara smiled softly. You're welcome. Honestly, it does mean a lot. I don't often find people who notice the small things, the little details. And last night, you noticed all of them. There was a pause, comfortable yet charged with unspoken thought. Clara's gaze softened as she considered Alex carefully, as if weighing the right words. Alex, have you ever thought about how much impact one person can have just by being thoughtful, by being aware? Alex tilted their head. I think about it often. It's why I pay attention. It's why I try to help. Clara's smile widened, a mixture of admiration and quiet amusement. Well, you certainly succeeded. I felt at ease. I didn't even realize how tense I was until after it was over. And that's all because of you. Alex felt a warmth spreading in their chest. To know that their subtle actions had created a real effect, that they had changed someone's experience for the better, was immensely satisfying. But it wasn't just professional pride anymore. It was personal. Clara's gratitude, her attention, her gaze, it all carried a weight Alex hadn't expected. Clara leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms loosely. You know, she said, with a hint of playfulness, you have a way of seeing people, seeing situations, solving problems quietly. And I can't help but wonder. Alex waited, their curiosity piqued. Clara's eyes met theirs directly. Do you think you'd ever want to date me? The words landed softly, almost hesitantly, yet with unmistakable intent. Alex froze for a brief second, their mind racing. They had always admired Clara, her intelligence, her leadership, her subtle humor, but they had never expected this directness. The question wasn't just bold, it was layered with vulnerability and honesty. Alex swallowed, their voice steadying as they replied carefully. I've never thought about it that way, but I respect you a lot. I've always admired how you handle everything, and I care about you. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't consider it. Clara's expression softened, a mixture of surprise and something warmer. You'd consider it, she asked quietly, almost incredulously. Alex nodded. Yes, but I also want to be honest. I don't want to rush anything. I just want to understand you as a person beyond work, if that's okay with you. Clara's lips curved into a small, genuine smile. It is, I'd like that too. I think maybe I've been waiting for someone who can see me, truly see me, not just as a CEO, but as me. Alex felt a quiet thrill, a mix of excitement and care. Then let's take our time, see where this goes. Clara nodded, her smile lingering. I think I'd like that very much. The office seemed to fade away as they sat there, sharing a moment that was equal parts personal and profound. No words could fully capture the depth of connection forming between them, but it was palpable, undeniable. For the rest of the day, Alex noticed subtle changes in Clara. She was lighter in her laughter, more relaxed in her movements, and more attentive in conversation, not just with Alex but with everyone around her. The office seemed brighter somehow, as if her newfound openness had changed the energy in the room. Alex couldn't help but smile. Their skills, their careful observation, their thoughtfulness, it wasn't just professional anymore. It had created a bridge, a connection, a spark of something entirely new. Later, during a team meeting, Clara looked at Alex briefly, a small, knowing smile playing on her lips. Alex met her gaze, and in that instant, a silent understanding passed between them. There was trust, respect, and the quiet thrill of possibility. After the meeting, Alex returned to their desk, still processing the morning's events. They had always known Clara as a brilliant, driven leader, someone who commanded attention effortlessly. but now they saw her differently. Human, complex, curious, and open to connection. And for the first time, Alex realized something important. Sometimes, understanding someone, helping them in subtle, thoughtful ways, could lead to deeper bonds than any professional achievement could. It was the human touch, the small gestures, the attention to detail that made a difference. That evening, as Alex left the office, their mind wandered to Clara's question, "Do you think you'd ever want to date me?" It wasn't just a question about romance. It was an acknowledgement of trust, respect, and mutual admiration. And it had shifted something fundamental in Alex's perception of their relationship with Clara. Walking home, Alex felt a quiet excitement. They knew the journey ahead would be delicate, full of subtle moments and careful steps. But they also knew that the foundation was solid: trust, respect, understanding, and the human ability to observe, adapt, and care. And so, the turning point had arrived. A question, simple yet profound, had opened the door to possibilities that neither Alex nor Clara had expected. It wasn't about rushing into anything. It was about recognizing connection, nurturing it, and letting it grow naturally. Alex smiled to themselves, thinking of the many small ways they had helped Clara in the past, and how those actions had quietly built a bridge between them. It was human ingenuity, empathy, and subtle courage at work, qualities that could change not only moments but relationships, perspectives, and lives. And for Alex, the thrill wasn't just in the challenge. It was in the possibility. The possibility of connection, understanding, and perhaps something more. As the night settled in and the city lights reflected off the quiet streets, Alex felt a sense of anticipation and calm. The path ahead was uncharted, but it was exciting. For the first time, they realized that their careful observation and thoughtful action could lead not just to success in work or problem solving, but to something profoundly personal and meaningful. And deep down, Alex knew this was only the beginning. The week following Clara's unexpected question passed in a haze of careful glances, subtle smiles, and small moments that hinted at something new. Alex found themselves noticing every detail: how Clara's eyes lingered slightly longer during conversations, how her laughter seemed softer when she was around, and how even her usual brisk pace through the office slowed whenever Alex was nearby. It wasn't just Clara who was changing. Alex felt a shift in themselves as well. They were more aware of their own thoughts and feelings, realizing that what had started as admiration and professional respect was deepening into something far more personal. The realization was exciting and slightly terrifying, but in a good way. One Thursday afternoon, Clara called Alex into her office. The air between them carried a subtle tension, a mix of professionalism and something unspoken. "Alex," she began, her tone casual yet deliberate, "I was thinking, we've been working together for a long time. I've always respected your judgment, but now I appreciate it in a new way." Alex tilted their head slightly. "In a new way?" they asked, their curiosity piqued. Clara smiled, a warm, genuine expression that made Alex's chest tighten slightly. "Yes, you notice things. You anticipate problems. You act thoughtfully. It's rare, and I find myself relying on you more than I realized, not just for work but for perspective." Alex felt a quiet thrill. Clara wasn't just recognizing their skills anymore. She was acknowledging their presence, their insight, their humanity. It was a different kind of respect, more personal, more intimate. "I'm glad you think that," Alex said softly, trying to keep their voice steady. "I've always tried to help in any way I can." Clara's eyes sparkled with amusement. "You do more than help, you make me feel understood, and I like that a lot." For a moment they simply looked at each other, the unspoken understanding between them thickening the air. It wasn't a declaration of romance, yet, but it was a bridge, strong and steady, built on years of trust, shared experiences, and now quiet admiration. Later that week, Clara invited Alex to accompany her to a professional networking dinner. Not a date, but a casual evening outside the office. The goal, Clara explained, was to help her navigate conversations smoothly while giving Alex a chance to observe and subtly guide the interactions. Alex accepted, both excited and nervous. They knew that this would be another opportunity to demonstrate their careful observation skills and quick thinking, but now the stakes felt different. There was more at play than professionalism. The dinner was held at a sleek, modern venue, softly lit with candles and low-hanging lights. As soon as Clara entered, she exuded her usual confidence, but Alex noticed small signs of tension in her shoulders. It was subtle, almost invisible, but they saw it. "Relax," Alex murmured quietly as they approached. "I've got your back, just focus on enjoying the evening." Clara smiled, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly. "Thanks," she whispered. "I feel better already." The evening unfolded with a series of conversations, some casual, some challenging. Clara's colleagues and contacts were polite, curious, and occasionally probing. Alex quietly guided her through each interaction, offering subtle suggestions via notes, adjusting seating arrangements with a discreet wave to the staff, and timing small interventions perfectly to prevent awkward moments. When a particularly dull conversation threatened to derail the mood, Alex created a distraction by asking a question about the venue's artwork. Clara seamlessly shifted topics, her laughter light and genuine. Alex felt a quiet satisfaction. This was exactly the kind of subtle influence they excelled at, the kind that made everything flow naturally. By the end of the evening, Clara was relaxed and radiant. She leaned toward Alex as they exited the venue, smiling. "I don't know how you do it," she said softly. "You make everything seem easy and enjoyable," Alex grinned. "I just pay attention, you notice, you act, you adjust, that's all it takes." Clara tilted her head slightly, her eyes warm and curious. "It's more than that, Alex. You see people, you see me, and that's rare, it's meaningful." Alex felt a rush of warmth. "I care about you, Clara, I always have." Her smile deepened, and for a brief moment the world seemed to narrow around them. No office, no colleagues, no responsibilities, just two people, quietly acknowledging the bond that had been growing over time. A few days later, Clara invited Alex to join her on a walk through a nearby park during lunch. It was an unusual request, but Alex welcomed it. The city's noise faded behind them as they strolled along winding paths, the sunlight dappling through the trees. "You know," Clara said after a moment of silence, "I've been thinking a lot about last week. About you. About how much you understand me in ways I didn't expect. And I realized something." Alex glanced at her, curious. "What's that?" Clara smiled softly. "I like who I am when I'm around you. I feel lighter, calmer, happier. And I think maybe I want more of that, more moments like this." Alex's heart quickened. "I feel the same," they admitted. "I've always admired you, but now I realize it's more than that. I want to know you, really know you, beyond work." They walked in silence for a few minutes, the quiet intimacy of the park making the moment feel even more significant. Clara's hand brushed against Alex's lightly, not intentionally, but enough to send a spark through both of them. "I never expected this," Clara said softly, her voice almost a whisper. "I never thought someone could see me and still want to be close, but you do. And I like that. A lot." Alex smiled, feeling a sense of triumph that was both quiet and profound. It wasn't about grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It was about connection, understanding, and the subtle courage to be vulnerable. Over the next few weeks, their bond deepened naturally. Small moments, sharing lunch, discussing projects, walking together after work, became opportunities to strengthen their understanding of each other. Every interaction was a blend of professional respect, personal admiration, and quiet affection. Clara began to rely on Alex in ways that went beyond work. She sought their perspective not just on professional decisions, but on personal dilemmas, social interactions, and moments of uncertainty. Alex, in turn, approached each situation with thoughtfulness, care, and a keen awareness of her needs. One afternoon, Clara invited Alex to sit with her in her office after a long day. "I've been thinking," she said, leaning back in her chair, "about us, about what's happening between us, and I realized I don't want to rush it, but I do want to explore it, carefully." Thoughtfully, with respect, Alex nodded. "I feel the same. I want to see where this goes without pressure, without forcing anything, just understanding each other." Clara's eyes softened. "Exactly, and that's why I trust you. Because you see things clearly and you act with care. And that matters." Alex felt a deep sense of fulfillment. This wasn't a dramatic declaration or a sudden revelation. It was a triumph of subtlety, understanding, and human connection. It was proof that empathy, observation, and quiet courage could create bonds stronger than any conventional effort. As the weeks passed, Clara and Alex continued to navigate their growing closeness with grace and subtlety. They shared small victories, laughter, and thoughtful conversations, each moment reinforcing the trust and admiration that had blossomed between them. The office, once just a place of routine and work, had become a stage for subtle triumphs of human ingenuity and connection. Alex's careful observation and quiet courage had transformed not only Clara's experiences, but their own understanding of what it meant to care for someone deeply. And in this slow, deliberate dance of connection, both Clara and Alex realized something profound. True triumph wasn't about grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It was about understanding, empathy, subtle courage, and the quiet joy of being seen and valued for who you truly are. By the end of the month, their relationship had grown into something steady, reliable, and profoundly human. The spark that had begun with a single question, "Do you think you'd ever want to date me?" had blossomed into a bond built on trust, understanding, and mutual admiration. And for Alex, the triumph wasn't just personal. It was a testament to the power of human ingenuity, empathy, and connection. It was proof that thoughtful action, careful observation, and quiet courage could create relationships that were meaningful, lasting, and deeply rewarding. As Clara looked at Alex one afternoon, her eyes bright with curiosity and warmth, she realized that she had found someone who didn't just see her for her title, her work, or her achievements, but for the person she truly was. And Alex, looking back at her with a mix of admiration and quiet pride, knew that they had found someone worth every thoughtful intervention, every subtle action, and every moment of care. The triumph was complete. The office hummed with activity on a bright Monday morning. Sunlight streamed through the large glass windows, glinting off the polished floors and casting warm reflections on the walls. For most people, it was just another workday. But for Alex and Clara, the day carried an unspoken energy, a subtle undercurrent of connection, trust, and understanding that had quietly transformed their relationship. Alex arrived first, carrying a folder of documents and a cup of coffee, their mind already racing through the tasks ahead. They smiled faintly as they glanced toward Clara's office. She was already at her desk, reviewing reports with her usual focus and precision. Yet there was a softness in her demeanor today, a calm assurance that hadn't been there before. Clara looked up as Alex entered the office. "Good morning," she said, her voice light and warm. "Coffee?" Alex shook their head, smiling. "Already on my desk, but thank you." Clara returned the smile, a small, knowing glint in her eyes. "You know," she began, "I've been thinking a lot about everything, the past few weeks, the dinners, the walks, even last night's work calls, and I realized something important." Alex tilted their head, curious. "What's that?" "You," Clara said simply, leaning back in her chair. "You've changed things, not just for me, but for everyone around us. The way you observe, the way you act thoughtfully, the way you understand people, it's remarkable, and it matters more than you know." Alex felt a quiet warmth spread through their chest. "I just try to pay attention, that's all." Clara shook her head. "No, it's more than that. You make people feel seen, Safe, understood, and that is rare. Alex blinked, humbled by the praise. I'm glad it's made a difference, they said softly. Clara smiled, her eyes bright. It has, and not just for me. I've noticed how colleagues respond to you differently now, how they value your opinion, how they trust your judgment. You've earned it through subtle action, thoughtful care, and quiet ingenuity. And that, Alex, is something very human, very rare, and very powerful. Alex felt a rush of pride, not from recognition alone, but from knowing that their efforts, the attention to detail, the careful observation, the small gestures, had genuinely impacted others. It wasn't about titles or authority. It was about understanding, empathy, and subtle influence, the quiet triumph of human ingenuity. Later that day, the office manager approached Clara with news about a potential collaboration with a prominent partner. Clara, we need your insight on this proposal, the manager said, and I think Alex's perspective would be invaluable as well. Clara glanced at Alex, who gave a small, confident nod. Absolutely, she said. Alex, can you join me? Together, they reviewed the proposal, discussing every detail with precision and clarity. Alex's observations were thoughtful, insightful, and subtle, helping Clara anticipate challenges before they arose. She listened carefully, occasionally smiling as Alex offered clever, practical solutions. By the end of the meeting, the proposal was not just solid, it was exceptional. Clara turned to Alex, her expression one of quiet admiration. You've done it again, she said softly. I don't know what I would do without you. Alex smiled, feeling the familiar satisfaction of helping, of observing, and of influencing outcomes in meaningful ways. But this time, it wasn't just professional pride. It was the warmth of connection, the trust, and the shared understanding with Clara that made the triumph feel profound. As the week progressed, small moments continued to strengthen the bond between them. Shared lunches became opportunities to laugh, discuss ideas, and explore personal thoughts. Walks through the park became more frequent, a chance to enjoy simple pleasures, sunlight, and conversation without the weight of work. One afternoon, Clara invited Alex to sit in her office after a busy morning. Alex, she began, I've been thinking about how much you've helped not just me, but the team, the company, even myself. And I realized something important. Alex looked at her, curious. What is it? Clara smiled softly. Your presence matters, your insight matters, your care matters, and most of all, you matter to me. Alex felt a rush of warmth, their chest tightening with emotion. I feel the same, Clara, they said. I admire you, I respect you, and I care about you. More than I realized. A comfortable silence followed, both of them savoring the moment, the quiet affirmation of feelings that had grown slowly, thoughtfully, and naturally. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't forced. It was real. It was human. Over the next few weeks, their relationship continued to evolve. They worked together seamlessly, celebrated small victories, and supported each other through challenges. Every shared glance, every quiet gesture, every thoughtful action reinforced their connection. One evening, after a long day at the office, Clara invited Alex to a small rooftop gathering with a few colleagues. The city lights stretched out below them, twinkling like stars. As people mingled and shared laughter, Clara turned to Alex. You know, she said softly, I never expected to feel this way. To find someone who sees me, understands me, and still wants to be close. But you've changed that, and I'm grateful. Alex smiled, feeling a sense of fulfillment that was both quiet and profound. I've always admired you, Clara, and I'm grateful for the chance to be here, to see things clearly, and to care in ways that matter. They stood side by side, gazing at the cityscape, the noise of the world fading behind them. In that quiet moment, they both understood something important. True connection wasn't about grand gestures, dramatic declarations, or sudden revelations. It was about observation, understanding, empathy, and subtle courage, the very qualities that had guided Alex from the beginning. Weeks turned into months, and their bond deepened naturally. They celebrated small personal milestones, supported each other through work challenges, and nurtured a quiet, steady affection. Their connection became a source of strength, inspiration, and joy, not just for them, but for those around them who noticed the harmony between their professional and personal interactions. The office itself seemed transformed. Colleagues admired Alex not just for their skills, but for their thoughtfulness, empathy, and subtle influence. Clara's leadership, tempered with newfound openness, became even more effective and approachable. Together, they demonstrated the power of human ingenuity, kindness, and understanding in ways that no machine, algorithm, or formal protocol could replicate. One Friday evening, as they left the office together, Clara turned to Alex. "Do you remember the first night?" she asked, smiling. "When you rescued me from that terrible date?" Alex laughed softly. "How could I forget?" Clara's eyes softened. "I didn't realize then how much that night would change things, not just for me but for us. You showed me care, observation, ingenuity, and most of all humanity, something rare in this world." Alex felt a quiet thrill. "I just paid attention, but I'm glad it mattered." Clara reached out and touched Alex's arm lightly. "It did, more than you know. And I think it always will." As they walked through the quiet streets, the city lights reflecting off the pavement, Alex realized the truth of it. Humanity, empathy, careful observation, subtle courage, and thoughtfulness could triumph over awkwardness, challenge, and complexity. It could create bonds, trust, and understanding in ways nothing else could. And that triumph wasn't just personal, it was universal. It showed that the qualities that made humans unique, intelligence, empathy, insight, and the courage to act thoughtfully, were the very things that could change outcomes, build relationships, and make the world better, one careful action at a time. That night, as Alex returned home, they reflected on everything that had happened. From the awkward first date, to subtle interventions, to quiet walks in the park, to shared professional successes, each moment had built toward something meaningful. It wasn't about grandeur, it was about humanity, connection, and the triumph of thoughtful action. Clara, watching the city from her office window, thought the same. She realized she had found someone who didn't just see her for her position, her achievements, or her title, but for who she truly was. And in Alex, she had found a partner, a friend, and a steady presence she could trust and admire. The journey wasn't over. Challenges, opportunities, and unexpected moments would continue to arise. But both Clara and Alex knew they could navigate them together, with observation, empathy, thoughtfulness, and subtle ingenuity. And in that quiet understanding, in the soft glow of city lights and human connection, they felt the triumph of humanity, the small, consistent actions that could change lives, relationships, and perspectives for the better. The story had reached its conclusion, but the bond it had created was only beginning. A partnership built on respect, admiration, understanding, and humanity, a triumph not just of skill, but of heart. And in that triumph, both Clara and Alex knew one thing for certain: human ingenuity, empathy, and care were the greatest powers of all. The end.